At the family lunch, my son-in-law shouted, "This poor woman only shows up on holidays to eat for free." He didn't know I was the one paying the rent for the house they lived in. "Your presence here means so much to me. Watch until the end and leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story has reached." I always looked forward to Sunday family lunches at my daughter's house. At 63, these gatherings were the highlight of my week, a chance to see my beautiful grandchildren and spend time with Jessica, my only daughter. I'd spent all morning baking Jessica's favorite apple pie, the recipe passed down from my mother. The house smelled of cinnamon and butter as I carefully wrapped the still warm pie in foil. I pulled up to their two-story suburban home in my 15-year-old sedan, noticing Marcus's shiny BMW in the driveway. My son-in-law had expensive taste, always chasing status symbols he couldn't afford. Taking a deep breath, I reminded myself to be pleasant. For Jessica's sake. For the children. Grandma's here. My 8-year-old grandson Tyler came running as I walked through the door, wrapping his arms around my waist. His little sister Emma toddled behind him, her face lighting up when she saw me. "I made your mommy's favorite," I said, handing the pie to Jessica, who greeted me with a quick hug. "Thanks, Mom. You didn't have to bring anything," she said, taking the pie to the kitchen. Marcus didn't bother getting up from the couch where he was watching golf. He barely acknowledged me with a nod. The dining room table was set beautifully, another one of Jessica's talents. She'd always had an eye for making things look perfect. I complimented the table's setting as we all sat down to eat. "So, Cynthia, what's new?" Marcus's sister Diane asked conversationally as plates were passed around. "Not much. Just enjoying my retirement," I replied, helping Emma cut her chicken. Marcus snorted. "Retirement? From what? Part-time work at the library?" I felt heat rise to my cheeks but kept my focus on Emma's plate. Marcus had never respected my career as a librarian, despite the fact that I'd supported Jessica through college on that salary after her father died. "The library is lucky to have Mom's expertise," Jessica said quietly, not quite meeting my eyes. The meal continued with pleasant conversation, mostly led by Diane, who seemed to sense the tension. I was just starting to relax when Marcus's mother mentioned their upcoming vacation to Hawaii. "You should come with us, Jessica. The resort has wonderful childcare," she gushed. Before Jessica could respond, Marcus laughed. "Mom, we can't pay for Cynthia too." "Oh, I wouldn't expect," I started, but Marcus cut me off. "Let's be honest here," he said, swirling his expensive wine. "This poor woman only shows up on holidays and Sundays for the free meals. We're not adding vacation handouts too." The table went silent. I felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. Jessica stared at her plate, saying nothing. The children looked confused. Diane gasped quietly. "Marcus," his mother scolded, but there was a hint of amusement in her voice. My hands trembled as I placed my napkin beside my half-eaten meal. If only they knew. If only they knew that I'd been paying the $2,300 monthly rent on this beautiful house for the past 3 years, ever since Jessica lost her job and Marcus's real estate empire started failing. If only they knew I'd drained my retirement account to keep a roof over my grandchildren's heads while Marcus drove luxury cars and took golf trips with clients. "I should go," I whispered, standing up. No one stopped me. Not even Jessica. I drove home in silence, tears blurring my vision. The irony was unbearable. For years, I'd arranged with their landlord to cover their rent anonymously, making him promise never to reveal my involvement. I wanted to preserve Marcus's pride and Jessica's marriage. Now I sat alone in my small apartment, surrounded by the second-hand furniture I'd kept so I could afford to support them. The phone rang twice that evening. Jessica, finally calling to apologize. I let it go to voicemail, unable to trust my voice. "Mom, I'm sorry about today. You know how Marcus gets, please call me back." I stared at the phone, decades of memories washing over me. I'd always put Jessica first. Always. even when it meant sacrificing my own needs. But as I sat in my quiet apartment, a new thought surfaced through my hurt and anger. Perhaps it was time to stop being the silent provider. Perhaps it was time they learned exactly what my poor woman status had been funding all these years. Sleep eluded me that night as memories flooded back. I found myself staring at the framed photo on my nightstand, Jessica at her college graduation, beaming with pride as I stood beside her in my best department store dress. We had made it, despite everything. After Richard died of a heart attack at 42, I was left alone with a 12-year-old daughter and a mortgage I could barely afford. The life insurance barely covered the funeral expenses. Everyone told me to sell the house, but I refused. Jessica needed stability, especially after losing her father. I took on a second job shelving books at the library in the evenings after my day's shift at the insurance office. Weekends, I cleaned houses for extra cash. Sleep became a luxury, but Jessica never went without. I made sure of that. "Mom, why don't you ever buy anything for yourself?" Jessica asked me once, noticing my worn shoes. "I have everything I need," I'd told her, which wasn't a lie. Seeing her thrive was enough. When she got accepted to State University with a partial scholarship, I nearly burst with pride. I worked overtime for 4 years to cover the remaining tuition and expenses, determined she would graduate debt-free. The day she landed her marketing job at Collins & Burke, I finally felt I could breathe. My beautiful, intelligent daughter would have opportunities one never had. She would have financial security. Then she met Marcus. He charmed her with his ambition and confidence, talking endlessly about the real estate empire he was building. I noticed the red flags immediately: the way he dominated conversations, his dismissive attitude toward Jessica's career achievements, his excessive spending. But Jessica was in love, and my concerns fell on deaf ears. "Mom, you don't understand how business works," she said when I questioned how he could afford his luxury lifestyle on a new agent's income. "Marcus is investing in his image. That's how you succeed in real estate." They married after 8 months of dating. Jessica looked radiant in her expensive gown, but I couldn't shake my uneasiness as I watched Marcus whisk her away to a honeymoon in Bali they couldn't afford. The phone call came 3 years ago, just after Emma was born. Jessica was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Marcus lost the Westridge deal, she managed between tears. The commission was supposed to cover our rent for the next 6 months. "We're being evicted, Mom." I drove over immediately, finding Jessica rocking Emma while Tyler played quietly in the corner, sensing the tension. Marcus was out with clients, despite the family crisis. "Where will you go?" I asked, my heart breaking at the sight of my daughter's despair. "Marcus refuses to downsize. He says appearances matter in his business. We can't afford anything in this neighborhood, but he won't consider moving." Jessica wiped her tears. "I don't know what to do. I just got laid off, and our savings are gone." That night, I made a decision. I called their landlord, Mr. Peterson, and arranged to cover their $2,300 monthly rent anonymously. "You can't tell them it's me," I insisted. "Tell them you're reducing the rent because you value them as tenants." "That's an awful lot of money each month, Cynthia," he said, concerned. "Can you afford it?" I couldn't, not really. It meant withdrawing from my retirement savings each month, moving to a smaller apartment, cutting every possible expense. But I nodded firmly. "They have children, Frank. My grandchildren need stability." For 3 years, I maintained this arrangement in secret. I sold my car for an older model. I took on consulting work at the library despite being retired. I clipped coupons and shopped sales. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his charade of success, buying designer clothes and taking clients to expensive restaurants while I ate store-brand soup and wore secondhand clothes. Jessica called again the morning after the disastrous Sunday lunch. "Mom, I'm really sorry about what Marcus said. He was out of line." "Did you defend me?" I asked quietly. The silence on the other end answered my question. "I didn't want to cause a scene in front of the kids," she finally said. You know how he gets when he's challenged. I did know. I'd watched my confident, accomplished daughter shrink under Marcus's criticism over the years, becoming a shadow of herself. I'm not feeling well, Jessica. I'll call you later, I said, unable to continue the conversation. As I hung up, I stared at the stack of bills on my counter. On top was the rent withdrawal notice, another $2,300 pulled from my dwindling savings. Beside it lay the past due notice for my own rent. Something inside me hardened. For 3 years, I'd sacrificed everything to keep their family afloat while Marcus insulted me at my own grandchildren's dinner table. For 3 years, I'd watched Jessica fade away, too afraid to stand up to her husband. Maybe my silence wasn't helping anyone. Maybe it was time for the truth. 3 days passed without another call from Jessica. In that time, I made a decision that sent waves of both anxiety and relief through my body. I contacted Mr. Peterson. I need to stop the payments, I told him, my voice steadier than I expected. Are you sure, Cynthia? He asked, concern evident in his tone. It's been 3 years. Yes, I said firmly. It's time they stood on their own feet. After hanging up, I sat at my small kitchen table, running my fingers over the wood grain. The weight of 3 years of secret financial burden began lifting from my shoulders, even as worry for my grandchildren settled in its place. My doorbell rang the following Tuesday afternoon. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I peered through the peephole, I saw Jessica, her eyes red and puffy. I hesitated before opening the door. Mom, she said, her voice breaking as she stood in the hallway. She looked disheveled, nothing like her usual put-together self. I stepped aside to let her in, noticing how her hands trembled as she clutched her purse. Where are the kids? I asked, wondering why she would come alone in the middle of a weekday. With Marcus's mother, she replied, collapsing onto my worn sofa. We got an eviction notice yesterday. I kept my expression neutral as I sat across from her. What happened? I don't know, she said, fresh tears spilling. For years, Mr. Peterson has been giving us reduced rent. He said it was because Marcus did some work on the property, but... She wiped her eyes. He suddenly says the arrangement is over, and we owe the full amount, $2,300 a month, plus 3 months back rent. I remained silent, waiting. Marcus is furious. He says we can't possibly pay it. Jessica looked around my modest apartment, her eyes lingering on the small television I'd owned for 15 years, the faded curtains, the stack of library books that constituted my entertainment. I didn't know where else to go. What about Marcus's successful real estate business? I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Jessica's shoulders slumped. It's been struggling for years, she admitted. The luxury lifestyle is all for show. He believes he has to look successful to be successful. And the money for that comes from where? Credit cards. Loans. She looked down at her hands. He's been gambling, trying to catch up. The admission hit me like a physical blow. While I'd been eating generic brand food and working during my retirement, Marcus had been gambling away money they didn't have. Why didn't you tell me? I asked softly. He threatened to take the kids if I told anyone we were struggling. Fresh tears fell. He said it would ruin his reputation, that no one would respect him. My heart broke for my daughter, trapped in this web of deception and control. I think Mr. Peterson told Marcus who's been paying the rent, she continued, looking confused. Marcus came home last night ranting about pride and charity, but he wouldn't explain. She looked up at me. Do you know anything about that? The moment had arrived. After 3 years of silence, the truth hovered between us, waiting to be acknowledged. Jessica, I said slowly, I've been paying your rent. Her eyes widened in disbelief. What? That's not possible. You don't have that kind of money. I used my retirement savings, I explained, watching comprehension dawn on her face. I sold my car, downsized my apartment, took consulting jobs. But why? Why would you do that? Because you have children who need stability. Because you lost your job and Marcus refused to live within your means. Jessica sat perfectly still, shock etched across her features. 3 years, she whispered. You've been paying our rent for 3 years? While Marcus treated you like a poor old woman who only shows up for free meals? I finished for her. Tears streamed down her face. I had no idea. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to know, I admitted. I thought I was helping. Preserving your marriage, giving the children stability. But you've been struggling, she said, looking around my apartment with new eyes, seeing the sacrifices written in every corner. All this time. I made my choice, I said simply. And now you've stopped paying, she realized. After Sunday. I nodded. I can't keep supporting a man who disrespects me to my face while taking my money behind my back. Jessica buried her face in her hands. I didn't defend you, she whispered. My own mother. He insulted you at our table, and I sat there saying nothing. The admission hung in the air between us. Why? I finally asked. Why didn't you say anything? Because I was afraid, she answered, her voice small. Afraid of his anger. Afraid of admitting our life is a lie. She looked up, her eyes filled with shame. Afraid of being alone. I moved to sit beside her, taking her hands in mine. You've never been alone, Jessica. I've always been here. What am I going to do? She asked, sounding more like the 12-year-old girl who'd lost her father than the 38-year-old woman she was now. I squeezed her hands. First, we tell the truth. All of it. Jessica stayed at my apartment that night, sleeping on my sofa bed. We talked for hours, peeling back layers of deception and fear that had built up over years. For the first time since she'd married Marcus, I saw glimpses of my daughter's true self emerging from the shell she'd become. He wasn't always like this, she whispered in the darkness of my living room. Or maybe he was, and I just couldn't see it. Morning came too quickly. Jessica had decided to confront Marcus about everything, the gambling, the financial deception, and most importantly, his treatment of me. I offered to go with her, but she shook her head. This is my battle, Mom. I let this happen. I watched her drive away, my heart in my throat. 3 hours later, my phone rang. Can you come get me? Jessica's voice was shaking but resolute. And can the kids stay with you for a few days? When I arrived at their house, the scene was chaotic. Marcus was shouting as Jessica calmly packed bags for the children. Tyler sat on the stairs, his small face a mask of confusion and fear. Emma clung to her mother's leg, crying softly. You ungrateful bitch. Marcus yelled, not even acknowledging my presence as I walked through the door. After everything I've done for this family. Like what, Marcus? Jessica replied, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. Maxing out our credit cards? Gambling away our savings? Insulting my mother while she paid our rent? He turned on me then, his face contorted with rage and humiliation. You, he snarled. You went behind my back. You made me look like a charity case. I stood my ground, meeting his gaze without flinching. No, Marcus. You did that all on your own. I just kept a roof over my grandchildren's heads while you played the big shot. Get out of my house, he roared. Technically, it's not your house, Jessica said quietly, zipping up Emma's backpack. We're 3 months behind on rent that Mom is no longer covering. We'll all have to leave soon. Marcus's face flushed deep red. He grabbed a vase from the entryway table and hurled it against the wall, sending glass shards flying. Emma screamed, burying her face in Jessica's leg. That's enough. I stepped forward, positioning myself between him and the children. Tyler, Emma, let's go wait in Grandma's car. They're not going anywhere. Marcus blocked the door. Those are my children. Dad, you're scaring me, Tyler said, his voice small but firm. Something in Marcus's face shifted at his son's words. He stepped back, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "This isn't over," he warned as Jessica guided the children past him. "No, it's not," she agreed. "But right now, the children need stability." The drive back to my apartment was quiet, punctuated only by Emma's occasional sniffles. I glanced in the rearview mirror at my grandchildren, their small faces solemn as they processed what was happening to their family. "Where will we sleep, Grandma?" Tyler asked as we walked up to my apartment. "You and Emma can have my bed," I told him, ruffling his hair. "Mom and I will use the sofa bed." "Like a sleepover?" Emma asked hopefully. "Exactly like a sleepover," I assured her. That night, after the children were finally asleep, Jessica collapsed at my small kitchen table. "He's been getting cash advances on credit cards to gamble," she revealed, her voice hollow. "We're over $70,000 in debt. The house of cards is falling apart." I reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "We'll figure it out." "He called me after you left," she continued. "First apologizing, then threatening, then crying. He said he'd change. He always says that." "And do you believe him?" I asked gently. She shook her head slowly. "Not anymore." Marcus showed up at my apartment the next morning. I was alone, Jessica having taken the children to the park to give them some normalcy. "Cynthia," he said, his voice artificially pleasant when I opened the door. "We need to talk." I let him in, noticing how he surveyed my small apartment with barely disguised contempt. "So this is where my children are staying?" he asked. "A bit cramped, isn't it?" "It's what I can afford after paying your rent for 3 years," I replied evenly. His jaw clenched. "About that? I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Is that what you call it?" He paced my living room, a predator in a too small cage. "Look, I appreciate what you did. Really. But you should have talked to me first. A man has his pride. Enough pride to let your family be evicted?" He stopped pacing, his eyes narrowing. "I would have figured something out. I always do." "Like gambling away borrowed money?" I asked. His expression hardened. "Jessica had no right to share our private affairs with you." "She had every right. You've been lying to her for years." Marcus stepped closer, using his height to intimidate me. "I need my family back home. Now." I didn't back down. "That's Jessica's decision, not mine." "You turned her against me," he accused. "No, Marcus. You did that all by yourself." He changed tactics then, his voice suddenly softer. "Cynthia, we're family. Families forgive each other." I said some things I shouldn't have. I was stressed about money. You understand that, right? The manipulation was so transparent it was almost laughable. "What I understand is that you've emotionally abused my daughter for years. What I understand is that you insulted me at my grandchildren's dinner table while secretly living off my retirement savings." His facade cracked. "You self-righteous old." The apartment door opened, and Jessica walked in with the children. Her eyes darted between us, immediately sensing the tension. "Marcus," she said carefully. "We didn't expect you." "Daddy." Emma ran to him, and he scooped her up, his demeanor instantly transforming. "There's my princess," he said, throwing me a triumphant look over her head. "Jessica, can we talk privately?" he asked, setting Emma down. "About coming home." Jessica glanced at me, then back to Marcus. "There is no home to go back to. We're being evicted, remember?" "I can fix that," he insisted. "I just need a little time." "Like you fixed it the last 3 years," she asked quietly. "While my mother drained her retirement to keep us afloat?" His expression darkened. "This isn't the time or place." "It's exactly the time and place," Jessica interrupted, her voice stronger than I'd heard in years. "I'm not going back, Marcus. Not to the lies, the gambling, the manipulation. Not to watching you disrespect my mother while taking her money. For a moment, Marcus stood perfectly still, as if processing this new version of his wife who dared to stand up to him. Then he turned to me, eyes blazing. "You'll regret this," he said softly. "Both of you." The next few weeks blurred together in a whirlwind of change. My small apartment became a sanctuary for Jessica and the children as they adjusted to their new reality. The sofa bed in my living room became Jessica's temporary home, while Tyler and Emma shared my bedroom. It was crowded, but there was a warmth in the chaos that had been missing from their perfectly styled house. Jessica filed for divorce the following week. The lawyer's office was cold and sterile, the paperwork overwhelming. I sat beside her, holding her hand as she signed her name on document after document. "Are you sure about this?" the lawyer asked, noticing her trembling fingers. Jessica straightened her shoulders. "Yes," she said firmly. "I'm sure." Marcus didn't take the news well. First came the flowers, delivered daily to my apartment with increasingly desperate notes. When those went unanswered, the tone changed. "He's threatening to take the kids," Jessica told me one night after they were asleep. "He says no judge will grant custody to an unemployed mother living in a cramped apartment." "He won't win," I assured her, though fear gnawed at my insides. Marcus came from money. His family had connections. "We'll fight him together." The eviction notice came through for their house. Jessica and I drove over one afternoon to collect the remaining essentials while Marcus was at work. The empty rooms echoed with memories as we packed clothes, toys, family photos. "I can't believe I'm leaving," Jessica whispered, running her hand along the kitchen counter. "I thought we'd raise our children here." "You will raise your children," I told her. "Just not here. Not with him." As we carried the last boxes to my car, Marcus's BMW screeched into the driveway. He jumped out, his face contorted with rage. "What are you doing?" he demanded, blocking our path. "Getting our things before the eviction," Jessica replied calmly. "You should do the same." "This is still my house," he shouted. "You can't just take whatever you want." "Actually, she can," I interjected. "These are the children's belongings, and they're living with her." Marcus turned on me, his eyes cold. "This is all your fault. You turned her against me." "No, Marcus," Jessica said. "You did that yourself. Every time you lied. Every time you gambled away our money. Every time you disrespected my mother while secretly taking her money." He grabbed her arm. "You're not taking my kids." "Let go of me," Jessica said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Or what?" he sneered. Neither of us had noticed Tyler standing in the doorway, watching. "Leave my mom alone," he shouted, his small voice fierce with protective anger. Marcus dropped Jessica's arm, startled by his son's intervention. Tyler ran to his mother, wrapping his arms around her legs. "Tyler," Marcus said, his voice suddenly gentle. "Buddy, this is just grown-up stuff. Your mom and I are talking." Tyler looked up at his father with eyes too knowing for his 8 years. "You were hurting her. I saw you." The accusation hung in the air between them. Marcus stepped back, visibly deflating. "We should go," I said quietly, guiding Jessica and Tyler toward the car. Marcus didn't try to stop us this time. Finding a new place to live became our priority. Jessica's savings were minimal, and with the divorce proceedings underway, finances were tight. I had a small emergency fund left that I'd been saving for property taxes, but it would have to serve a new purpose now. "I can't take any more of your money, Mom," Jessica protested when I offered it for a security deposit. "You've given enough." "This isn't just for you," I told her. "It's for my grandchildren. For all of us." We found a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood with good schools. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and bright, with a small playground visible from the kitchen window. The rent was manageable, especially once Jessica secured a job at a local marketing firm. It paid less than her previous position but offered flexible hours that accommodated her new single-parent status. Moving day arrived with unexpected help. My former colleagues from the library showed up with boxes and casseroles. Jessica's college friend Melissa, whom she'd lost touch with during her marriage, drove 3 hours to help arrange furniture and hang curtains. Even Mr. Peterson, their former landlord, stopped by with a housewarming gift. "You did the right thing," he told me privately as we watched the children explore their new rooms. "Both in helping them and in stopping when you did." Tyler and Emma adapted to the changes with remarkable resilience. They missed their old house at first, but the small apartment quickly became home as Jessica filled it with love and stability rather than the tension that had permeated their former life. Marcus wasn't giving up easily, though. He filed for full custody, claiming Jessica was an unfit mother due to her financial instability and unstable living situation. The court appointed a guardian ad litem to evaluate both parents and their living arrangements. The day the guardian visited our apartment, Jessica was a nervous wreck. "What if she thinks it's too small?" she fretted, straightening throw pillows for the 10th time. "What if she sides with Marcus?" "She'll see the truth," I assured her, though my own anxiety bubbled just beneath the surface. The visit went better than expected. The guardian, a no-nonsense woman named Mrs. Winters, seemed more interested in the family dynamics than the size of the apartment. She watched Jessica interact with the children, noted the artwork proudly displayed on the refrigerator, the reading nook created in the corner of the living room. "Your children seem happy," she remarked as she was leaving. "That's what matters most." 2 weeks later, the temporary custody ruling came through. Jessica would retain primary custody, with Marcus granted supervised visitation twice a week. It wasn't the final word, but it was a start. A foundation on which to rebuild. That night, after the children were asleep, Jessica and I sat on the small balcony of their new apartment, sharing a bottle of inexpensive wine. "I never thought I'd be starting over at 38, she admitted, gazing out at the twinkling city lights. "I never thought I'd be starting over at 63, I replied with a small smile. "But here we are." Jessica reached for my hand, squeezing it tight. "I'm so sorry, Mom. For everything." "Don't be sorry," I told her. "Just be strong. For yourself. For your children." She nodded, determination replacing the doubt that had clouded her eyes for too long. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" I looked at my daughter, seeing glimpses of the confident young woman she'd been before Marcus, before the years of manipulation and control had dimmed her light. That woman was returning, slowly but surely, growing stronger each day. "Yes," I said with certainty. "We're already okay. 2 years can change everything." The calendar on Jessica's kitchen wall marked exactly 24 months since that fateful Sunday lunch when Marcus had humiliated me in front of the family. 24 months of hardship, growth, tears, and ultimately, triumph. Today, we were celebrating Tyler's 10th birthday in the community park near their apartment. Jessica had transformed a simple picnic shelter into a festive space with balloons and streamers. Children ran through the grass, their laughter carried on the summer breeze. Emma, now 5, supervised the games with the authority only a kindergartner can muster. "Mom, what do you think?" Jessica asked, arranging cupcakes on a plastic tray. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her face free of the heavy makeup Marcus had always insisted she wear. She looked younger, lighter. "It's perfect," I assured her, adjusting the birthday banner. "Tyler will love it." The past 2 years hadn't been easy. The divorce had dragged on for months as Marcus fought every provision, using his family's resources to delay proceedings and drain Jessica's limited funds. He'd shown up to court appearances in expensive suits, painting himself as the devoted father while portraying Jessica as unstable and financially irresponsible. But the truth had a way of revealing itself. The guardian ad litem had done her job thoroughly, interviewing the children, observing both households, reviewing financial records. Her final report had been damning for Marcus, documenting his gambling habits and the emotional manipulation he'd subjected Jessica and the children to for years. The custody battle had been the hardest part. Marcus had used the children as pawns, bringing them expensive gifts during his supervised visits, promising trips to Disney World and a pony for Emma, promises he had no intention of keeping. He tried to turn them against Jessica, subtly at first, then more openly as his desperation grew. But children see more than adults give them credit for. Tyler had gradually withdrawn from his father, growing quiet during visits. One day, he had refused to go at all. "He makes Mom cry," he'd explained to the visitation supervisor. "He says mean things about Grandma." The final divorce decree had granted Jessica full custody, with Marcus allowed supervised visitation every other weekend. He'd been ordered to pay child support based on his potential earning capacity, not the modest income he claimed to have. His family had finally cut him off financially after a particularly ugly court appearance where his gambling debts had been exposed in detail. The party was in full swing when I noticed Jessica tense beside me. Following her gaze across the park, I saw Marcus approaching, a large wrapped package under his arm. "He's early," Jessica murmured. "Visitation isn't until tomorrow." I squeezed her hand. "It's okay. We've got this." Marcus had aged in the past 2 years. The designer clothes had been replaced with off-the-rack attire, his once immaculate appearance now slightly rumpled. He'd been forced to get a real job at his uncle's insurance company after the divorce settlements drained his resources. "Happy birthday, champ," he called as he approached the picnic area. Tyler looked up from where he was playing with his friends, his expression guarded. "Dad? What are you doing here?" "I came to bring you your present," Marcus said, holding out the package. "I know I'll see you tomorrow, but I wanted you to have this for your actual birthday." Jessica stepped forward. "Marcus, we agreed on the visitation schedule." He ignored her, focusing on Tyler. "Don't you want to open it, buddy?" Tyler glanced at his mother, then back at his father. "You can leave it with the other presents," he said quietly. "I'm playing with my friends right now." Marcus's face darkened momentarily before he forced a smile. "Sure, champ. We'll open it tomorrow." He set the gift on the table, then turned to Jessica. "You're looking well," he remarked, his tone hard to read. "Thank you," she replied simply. His gaze shifted to me. "Cynthia. Still interfering in family matters, I see." Before I could respond, Jessica stepped between us. "My mother is family, Marcus. The most supportive family I've ever had. Please don't start anything, not at Tyler's birthday." A flicker of something, regret, perhaps, passed across his face. "I just came to drop off the gift," he said, his bravado deflating slightly. "I'll see the kids tomorrow." As he walked away, I noticed how much smaller he seemed without the power he'd once wielded over our family. "You okay?" I asked Jessica quietly. She nodded, watching him go. "You know what's strange? I used to be terrified of him, of disappointing him, of his anger. Now I just feel nothing." The party continued, Marcus's brief appearance barely causing a ripple in the day's celebrations. Tyler blew out his candles, opened his presents, and played with his friends until the sun began to set. It was everything a child's birthday should be: simple, joyful, surrounded by love. Later that evening, as Jessica and I cleaned up while the children watched a movie in the living room, she handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "Open it," she urged, a small smile playing at her lips. Inside was a check, the exact amount I'd spent on their rent over those 3 years. "Jessica, no," I protested. "You don't need to." "Yes, I do," she interrupted firmly. "I've been saving from every paycheck. The promotion I got last month finally made it possible to pay you back in full." "I never expected repayment," I told her truthfully. "I know," she said, taking my hands in hers. "That's why it matters so much that I do this. You sacrificed everything for us, Mom. Now it's my turn to take care of you." Tears pricked my eyes as I looked around the small apartment they now called home. It wasn't fancy, no marble countertops or crystal chandeliers, but it was filled with laughter, honesty, and love. Jessica had created a true home for her children, one built on authenticity rather than appearances. "I'm proud of you," I said, pulling her into a hug. So proud. Later that night, lying in the spare bedroom that was now permanently mine whenever I stayed over, I thought about how far we'd come. Jessica had risen from the ashes of her marriage, stronger and more resilient than before. The children were thriving, secure in the knowledge that they were truly loved, not just accessories in someone's carefully constructed image. And me? At 65, I was finally able to enjoy my retirement, to travel modestly, to take art classes at the community center, all the small pleasures I denied myself while supporting them. The check Jessica had given me would restore my emergency fund, providing security for my later years. But the true wealth wasn't financial. It was in Tyler's fierce hugs and Emma's bedtime stories. It was in Jessica's renewed confidence and strength. It was in the knowledge that we had faced the worst together and emerged victorious. I used to believe that my role as the silent provider was an act of love, that sacrificing my own needs for theirs was what a mother should do. Now I understood that true love sometimes means letting people face their own challenges, that enabling someone's destructive behavior isn't helping them at all. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. The kids want grandma pancakes for breakfast. Early enough for you? I smiled as I typed my reply, I'll be there. With chocolate chips. Some might look at our lives now, a single mother in a modest apartment, a grandmother without the trappings of wealth, and see something lacking. They might not understand that what we've gained is worth far more than what we've lost. Freedom. Authenticity. Self-respect. The courage to live honestly, without facades or pretenses. These are the true measures of wealth. These are the gifts worth giving. And as I drifted off to sleep, I knew with absolute certainty that I was the richest woman in the world.